first of all, fuck this book. Like, ruined my life. I'm having an allergic reaction. Every day is the same. Every day blends together. This book makes me super angry. The last line of all of these poems is like, oh God, I want to understand. If you don't want to hear about things protruding from anal glands, maybe pass on this one. Hello friends. Today is a holiday where I live. I am putting in very little effort here. I'm putting all of my attention here. This is my TBR for the Canadian Read-A-Thon. I have way too many books to reasonably get to. And I was like, oh, I'll start early, I'll cheat a little. I only ended up reading like 10 pages of this. And then, I don't know, we had a long night. I didn't end up going to bed until like 3 a.m. I don't think today will be very much vlogging. I'm just gonna focus on reading my first book, Washington Black by Essie Ajujian. I still barely know what it's about, but most of this week is going to be right here in my house, hanging out, and I literally have no plans today. I'm just gonna read all day. That's it. It's much later now, and I have been doing nothing but reading. I told myself that I was gonna stop at the halfway point, and then I didn't, and I told myself I couldn't stop until I understood what the freaking octopus on the cover is like symbolizing. I want to understand. So I've just entered part 3, which takes place in Nova Scotia, and I think I am just coming to understand the significance of this. I don't know, maybe. Or maybe it's just like a symbol of the sea in general, because a lot of this book takes place on the ocean. Well, it's everywhere. We're in Barbados, and we're following a young boy named Washington Black. If you've never heard of this book before, I'll try to sum it up. He has been enslaved. There is a family who's, kidnapped him, stolen him, owns him, and one of the members of the family is like a scientist and explorer, and takes him, Washington, with him on his like travels. So they go to the States under the guise of like this trip. But there's other things going on. There's different people that he's connecting with. They travel the Underground Railroad, and they end up, we've gone through some different places. Like I said, we're in Nova Scotia now. They were also up super far north. There have been some scenes that have been really painful to read, and I've cried, I think, 3 different times. Her writing is just really doing it to me. It's pretty much exactly what I thought it would be. I think it's very well done. I am interested to see where we're going from here. Right now we're in 1834, and the night is young. It's 9:30, so I'll see how much further I can get tonight. I plan to read this in like the first 2 days of the Readathon, and I still think that's probably the goal, because I'm only a little over halfway, and I'll keep you updated. Hello, I worked all day. It's almost 4 p.m. Now I'm gonna start reading. That's my update. I'm tired. Okay, you probably can't hear me, but we're at the beach. The power went out, the internet went down. Now here we are, and I brought a book. Embarrassed by how poorly I've been vlogging, especially some of my co-hosts have been daily vlogging, which is so impressive to me. I don't think I realized how run down I was after the reading rush. Historically, I always get sick like the week after the reading rush, and I think that I might be getting sick I just feel really like tired and just like ill. I don't know. Yesterday was not a good day. I had a really bad day. So I've poorly been vlogging and I'm very sorry. I've finished 2 books at this point. First of all, fuck this book. Like, ruined my life. Sobbing. Can't take it. So good. I just like don't understand. Me giving a 5-star to a historical fiction, I literally don't know what's going on. But that's terrible because I shouldn't say like I was expecting not to like it, because it's been sitting on my shelf for years. I clearly picked it up. Why did I pick this up? You didn't. You didn't pick it up. Indigo sent it to you because it was one of their best books of the year. This was a finalist for the Man Booker Prize and the winner of the Scotiabank Giller Prize. I don't know much about book prizes, but on the bingo sheet, which, who's doing the Twitter sprints today? I'm so out of it, I can't even. I think it's Jill. Yeah, okay, it's Jill. Jill posted the bingo board on Twitter, and I was like, oh yeah, the bingo board. And I have officially, with only 2 books, completed 2 bingos. Because this fits for the book award and the red on the cover and a book by a Black author. And then to complete the bingo, something that's not a novel, Disintegrate, Dissociate. And this also fits for, this is Ariel Twist's debut. It's LGBTQIA or queer. Her bio says she's a two-spirit trans femme supernova, which I love. And the stories all revolved pretty much around her life and her trans identity and her experiences with men. It was very intense to read. I mean, as poetry often is. I didn't want to fold down the pages, obviously, because it's a library book, and then I didn't have any post-its or anything, so I just stuck a bunch of bookmarks in my favorite ones. My favorite poems in here are Under Uprooted Trees. There's like one line in here that physically hurt me. And then In Dying I Become, this one again, like the last line of all of these poems is like, oh god. And then this one called Who Will Save You Now? I didn't even remember the title. I love this one because it talks about queerness and being indigenous and how it intersections. It says, white queers policing your existence, indigenous blood telling you that you're a new generation problem. That line doesn't give you an overall idea of how like graphic and intense and violent the violence that this covers. So definitely go into it like prepared. I don't know what trigger warnings to give. I'm assuming you could find some trigger warnings from people who traditionally give trigger warnings, like in their reviews or maybe on her website. But this was also 5 stars, by the way. So perfect reading experience so far. Also, nature on the cover. And then this is by a Canadian publisher, which I didn't even know. Like I said in my TBR, I'm pretty unaware of Canadian publishers. Like I'm unaware of publishing in general. Like I truly do not understand publishing. I don't understand the imprints. I don't understand houses. I don't really get it. So I'm just going to begin my like learning and self-education about publishing. But this one was published by Arsenal Pulp Press, which is from Vancouver, BC, so that's cool. A story about a loving relationship. I counted this, the relationships in here are so complex. Like I said, we have Wash and his relationship with the man that took him away. I don't really know like how to discuss their relationship, but I, one, loved it and it hurt me. But then he also has a relationship with a woman in this book that isn't in the synopsis, so I'm not really gonna talk about. Oh, and then like one of the biggest reveals in the book that again I can't talk about, but is a loving relationship that was unexpected. And oh god, at this point I'm done work for the day. I just got a package in the mail. My new whatever that says bullet journal. I've been asked so many times where I got this one, and I got it from Indigo, but they don't even stock the slim version anymore, but you can buy it directly from the website, so I will link it down below, and you can choose if you want it like lined or dotted. I do it like, this is the size of a typical bullet journal, and this one is just like life-changing. Not to be dramatic, but it just fits everything so much better. It's called the Slim edition and it comes in some beautiful colors. I wouldn't recommend this one because I'm not like a dirty person and this got so grimy. And the book that I'm reading next matches it. So I'm gonna move over to The Skin We're In by Desmond Cole, which is nonfiction, and I might check out the audiobook. I feel like I saw it on Scribd, but maybe it's not available anymore. Although it's only like 200 pages, so I could read that with my eyes rather quickly as well. I also forgot, like every readathon, I pick a collection of short stories or essays so I can read one a day or two a day, and I forgot that I have China Dog for that purpose. So maybe I'll read a couple of these stories. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that's great. There was the exact right amount of stories for one a day. Anyway, I'll read a couple of these. I probably won't check in until later tonight because I need to like do dinner now. Robbie and I started watching a movie last night, so we're gonna finish it because I apparently can't watch an entire movie in one sitting. I also have some really good YouTube videos to watch. Trin put out a new video today reacting to one of my favorite movies. Bonnie Bear put out a new song. And then I want to watch the Readathon vlogs because I'm so proud of everyone for doing those. Okay, admittedly, the day got away from me a little and continues to get away from me because I'm still not reading. I did a little live show while I made dinner. I needed to prepare some things for work tomorrow. Then I took this personality quiz and posted on Twitter of like characters you're similar to. And now suddenly I'm lying in my bed watching Crazy Rich Asians because apparently my #1 person was the girl from Crazy Rich Asians. And I've never seen it before because I don't make time to watch TV and movies. But apparently a readathon that I'm running and vlogging and reading, that's the perfect time to watch a movie. So I actually wanted something like lighter to read instead and something I had as an audiobook. So on Scribd I found The Troop by Nick Cutter. I wanted something lighter to read, so I picked up the most gory, grotesque book ever. That's not what I meant. I didn't mean lighter, I just meant like something that's not nonfiction that wouldn't require all of my brain power. And I'm maybe, let's say 50 pages into it. I like it. I don't know if the audiobook or the physical copy is the better way to read it, but I'm gonna try both. So once I'm done the movie, I guess, I will continue listening as I fall asleep. And then I have lots of, I guess more mindless work that I am doing tomorrow that I can definitely listen to an audiobook for like a good portion of my day. Just the type of work that I can pop in headphones, listen to a book while I make things and do things. Okay, so I know, where's my voice? Hello? I know it looks like I'm a terrible vlogger and that I never leave my room. Those things might be true. Anyway, it's day 4 of the Read-A-Thon, and I am reading The Troop, but I started this last night. I'm continuing it today. I feel like I'm gonna finish it today. That's not actually where I am. I switched to the audiobook, which I am enjoying, kind of, but I think I'm gonna switch back to reading it physically. I know I'm like exactly halfway through, so that's like, say 170 pages. I just marked a page for no reason, just for you. I really like that there's articles throughout this to kick off some chapters or like between chapters that explains like what the boys went through on this trip. So The Troop is about a troop of Boy Scouts, and the book kicks off with this guy like showing up to their accommodations in the woods, and he's like sick and they don't know what's wrong with him, and they have a troop leader and he's trying to help this man, and he tells the boys to just like go along with what they were there for, continue their trek, just like ignore what's happening, but things quickly go wrong. This is what people tend to use the term body horror for, which I guess I've used too, but I don't even know like what the definition of that is. I think it's just like a way to determine like what type of horror we're speaking about. Like, it's not creature horror, it's not nature horror. I still don't even know what type of horror. I'm trying so hard not to just say horror, because that's how I would normally pronounce horror. I also don't even know the other subgenres. I'm sure if I sat down and really thought about them, I could figure it out. But we're very much like gory body stuff. Like the, what's the word for when your face is like falling apart? Disintegration? Decaying, decomposing of bodies, and like bones and blood and guts, and like digging into people, and also like animal graphic scenes. It's not too much for me. I've heard that like this is disgusting and difficult to read, and I think it might be because I'm listening to the audiobook that I'm kind of a little separated. But if I was reading it with my eyes, maybe it would be more like gory and gruesome and affect me more, which I want. Is it really a BooksandLala vlog if I don't show you the weather? Hi, me again. This book is gross. If I'm being completely honest, I wasn't like super interested in reading this book. I was more interested in just understanding what everyone was talking about when they said it was disgusting. It was just so intriguing, like not even the story or whatever. I just wanted to know like what people were talking about, because I was like, okay, it's gory, and like what? Like blood? Oh no, like someone's getting cut, like blood and guts. Like how many ways can you describe like an injury and blood? Gushing blood, like thick blood. Maybe someone gets like stabbed in the eye, blood, like, but no, I get it. I get it. I'm still not someone who is like affected in that way. Like I don't think I would ever feel like queasy reading a book or have to like stop reading a book because it's gross. But it definitely is gross. And I don't know if discussing the gross parts of it would kind of spoil the book. Because what this man is going through and what the boys end up going through is the book. You know what I mean? It says a bioengineered nightmare is what they're going through. And it says they're infected. So that gives you a little bit, but like you're probably not prepared for like, let me think of a couple things. So if you don't want to hear about things protruding from anal glands, maybe pass on this one. That's one example of many that just give you an idea of like what we're talking about. I'm going to read this as I fall asleep. It's going to be too late by the time I'm done to update you because I'm not the only one who lives and sleeps here. So I'll check in with you in the morning. Okay, I lied to you. I don't actually leave my room, okay? I was gonna start out this clip by saying like I'm done like trying to, you know, tidy up before I vlog and put like some kind of effort into presentation, but like my head is so big that you can't even see the mess behind me. Those are peanut butter pretzels. That's literally drugs. Oh, and there's a sock peeking out of my dresser. But my head's so big I could have kept that all from you. I'm glad it's Friday. Not that my weekend is much different than my day-to-day. Every day is the same. Every day blends together. My mental health is decreasing. There's hockey. It's 5-1? What was I saying? Sorry, I filmed some videos today and Now, like, my energy is just, it can't be found. Have you seen it? So I did finish The Troop. Oh God, okay. You know, we can't only have winners, so it's fine that this wasn't great. Was it successful in being gross and uncomfortable and all the things that everyone pitches it as? For sure. Did I enjoy it? I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'm definitely down for the overall idea of the story. Like, we know I love Lord of the Flies. We know I love Wilder Girls. Put those two things together, throw in some like unnecessary Stephen King type gore, and you've got The Troop. Was I scared? No. I don't feel like bashing this book because like it doesn't deserve it, and all of my friends absolutely love this, so there is something to it for sure. I just didn't really get that much out of it, although I don't know what I'm really looking for in this type of genre to begin with. I liked the interspliced sections of like people observing the boys kind of, or just talking about like the science of it all. I do think this was too long in general. It was fine. With all that said, like, I'm not actually giving it a low rating. I'm giving it a maybe a 3, maybe a 2.75. I'm never one to like give trigger warnings, not because I don't like care about them, but more because like every book has the potential of having so many different triggers for so many different people, and I'm sure there are many people out there who do like thorough analysis, or that there's even like databases that people can contribute to that have thorough trigger warnings. But a couple of things that I'll mention, I would never want to say like a certain group of people wouldn't like a book because like I don't know you, but I would give warnings to my Indigenous friends about like a couple things, in the same way that I warned you about the use of the term spirit animal in The House at the Bottom of a Lake. I would tell you that there are like a couple terms in here, a couple usages of words that are like annoying. And then obviously, well, not obviously, because like I filmed my clip last night right before I read the actual animal cruelty scene, so I would warn you about that as well. Though like there is something to be said about like society being okay reading about people being murdered more so than animals, but we're not going to have that conversation today. Also, mentioning those things are not reasons that I gave this a low rating. I just want to be clear, because a lot of times when I'm talking about books and I mention things that happen in books and then I give that book a low rating, people assume that those two things are connected, when they rarely are. But I did get to read a book set in a province very clearly, evidently set in PEI, so we can scratch off another bingo square. I'm definitely behind on my reading, which is probably also just like why I'm feeling generally annoyed because I still have so many things I want to read, and I have a lot of things that I need to do this weekend. Okay, it's like 1 in the morning. My laundry is in frame because that's just what we're doing. I was feeling a little combative earlier. I'm sorry. Ow, fuck. I just paper cutted myself 7,000 times. You know how some things you get in book boxes and you don't actually use? Back when I used to get book boxes, I didn't use many things, but these little mirrors that book publishers would make that matched the books, like I never read this book, but this mirror I've been using for at least a year. Okay, this book made me angry is what I was saying, but like obviously in the way that it intends. I tried listening to the audiobook. First of all, I signed up finally for Libro FM. I'm so over Audible and I'm excited to try it out. So I ended up getting the audiobook and using my credit for that, even though I didn't really listen to it. So I'll put my link down below if you want to sign up with my link. I don't even know what it does. Does it give you a discount? Does it give me a discount? I have no idea. Anyway, it just helps support like indie bookstores instead of, you know, Amazon. What was I saying? Oh, the reason the audiobook didn't totally work for me is, I don't know how to say it, But his tone of speaking was a little like light and bubbly for the subject matter, and it just completely threw me off. That's obviously a personal opinion, so go ahead, get yourself Libro FM with my link and check it out. I'm just kidding, everyone already uses it. I'm so late to the party. So this covers basically a year in Desmond Cole's life. He is like a journalist. He covers a lot of police related like violence and events in Canada, and there are some specific like altercations, assaults, murders that he goes over that occurred like during this time period, and him attending like different protests and going to different what are they called, like meetings, trials. I can't even think of the words now, but did I say it's 1 in the morning? I just edited a video. It's premiering tomorrow morning. I have a live show on Sunday. I'm trying to get my life together and still complete my books. I mean, I definitely found some sections more informative than others, more, I don't want to say well written, I don't want to say intriguing, because all of these, it's hard to talk about nonfiction. I definitely felt most strongly about the section about DeFonte Miller. And obviously all of this like ties together, although there are lots of topics discussed, from First Nations history to how Black people came to Canada to how Black people are treated in Canada current day. Everything like ties together and is linked, and it all makes sense. But this section and just this conversation around this one event, everything made me angry in here. But this, it's one thing to follow like the news and what the news told us what happened back in like 2016, and reading from someone who is so heavily involved and educated on the topic. This was basically a teenage boy who was assaulted by an off-duty police officer, and all of the subsequent cover-ups and shit that went down after that. Basically, there are all these rules, and you're supposed to report anything to like this higher group of people in charge, but like they chose not to do that. And then they tried to cover it up by saying like, oh, we didn't know he was even a police officer. But then in the 911 calls, you can hear him be identified as a police officer. And then you find out that the police officer who assaulted him, his father is like in charge of shit, and like did all of this sneaky stuff to try to get more information on the investigation. And oh my god, it just makes you so angry. And that's just one case. And there's like this whole thing in here about how, you know, 90% of crime committed by police officers doesn't even get reported. Something like that. I think I put a post-it, but you should just read it instead of listening to me. This is super well written. I think this is a 5-star. I think there's a perfect amount of statistics, so it doesn't become overrun and you feel overwhelmed and just like a bunch of numbers are thrown at you. It's got the perfect amount of personal stories from him, and then things that he cares about. I so much appreciate the statistics in here about like suspensions, and is there a past tense term for expel? Expulations of Black students versus white students, but technically in the paperwork within the school system, they don't even put white down in the paperwork. They put European. Like, what the fuck does that mean when you're also putting Black down? Anyway, just in like one city, in one school district or whatever, 13% of the students identified as Black, yet 48% of students who had been expelled in the past 5 years were Black. These are things that, like, now I don't want to say everybody, because some people consistently and aggressively deny racism in Canada, but I feel like this is a thing that is known. But like, it's documented, it's proven, it's undeniable, and it's disgusting. Again, I don't want to give you like all of what this book talked about because I want you to read it because it's really great. It obviously is frustrating. Not all of the cases in here are even like solved, and it just goes to show how fucking long the legal processes are. Like, it's wild. But on the other hand, when he finishes chapters with like, this is where the case is right now, who knows where it's going to be once this book is published, it also encourages you to go follow up on those cases to see where these people are, to see what has happened. Like, what's happened after the Devonte Miller thing. Obviously, I just spent like an hour looking back on the internet, because the thing about news, and is talked about in here, is like, yeah, they'll give you some information, barely all the information on the news outlet, like when it happens, but then a lot of times it can be misleading. And that's how I feel about a lot of the protests and discussions, especially happening in the States right now, and all of these things going on, because people are almost misled by what's happening. Like, you hear, oh, these officers were charged for this, but this book even says like no police officer has ever been actually convicted of any of these crimes. And that's just like so intentional too, by the people reporting on these crimes. Like, they're very intentional with the information that they provide. So thank goodness people even have the ability to publish books, and people can make shows, and people can make movies, and people can speak out about things in this country without having to be supported by like the government or any political system or police system or whatever. I feel like I could go on and on about this book, but I need to go to bed, and we'll figure out tomorrow what's happening when we get there. Good morning. It's Saturday. I have just had to come to accept that this vlog is gonna be a bit less interesting than I thought. I had like plans for today. I was like, I'm gonna be like the most Canadian I can be today. I'm gonna go get a poutine. I'm gonna go to the lake. I'm gonna go get some ketchup chips. I don't know. But I don't actually want to go anywhere today. And the boys are out doing something called Community Day for Pokemon, I think. But it doesn't actually involve interacting with other people. They just have to leave the house for some reason. I don't know. So I was thinking about reading an audiobook just because I have to clean and I have to do some things around the house. But I also know I really need to prioritize this, and I really want to read this. And as much as I know this isn't going to be like a light story, it's about a girl being assaulted at work, I do need something that's a little easier of a read. So I think YA will do that for me. And there doesn't seem to be an audiobook of this, so I guess I'm just gonna hang out in my bed looking like this, reading my book just alone at home, and that's all we're up to. That makes it sound like my day has nothing going on, but I'm actually really busy today. But it's a lot of like online stuff. I have a lot of various commitments and little events. I just did my video premiere for the Literally Dead book club, announcing the next picks. I have a couple other things going on that aren't that interesting for you, so I'll just update you when I get into this. Oh, and the underneath the dust jacket is pink, so that makes me happy for no reason. Hello, it's now very late. Oh god, you can see my reflection. Okay, I'm having an allergic reaction to the amount of Red 40 in Laffy Taffy I just consumed, because I pretty much ate my body weight in candy. I've had an emotional day. Yes, it's much later. I did film a clip earlier, but I was crying the entire time, like in a good way, but I'm not gonna make you watch that. I feel overwhelmed. I have taken a lot on lately, and I feel like I have a lot to do, and I feel like I'm not doing a good job at any of the things that I set out to do. And then Zoe just tweeted something nice about me, and then I cried. today's successes. I put out a video. I did a premiere for the first time in a while, and that was really fun. It really lets me feel connected to the community. I'm like buddy reading, co-hosting things with a lot of people, and for anyone who ever says to me like, oh, it's so nice of you to like invite smaller creators or like include different people in all of your stuff, like, no, it's not nice. It's for me. It's not, it's for me. I force my friendship onto people. I don't have like the cool little buddy chats and like the group of best friends. Like, I don't like do things in real life with the book community. I don't get invited to all the things. I just go and I find people and I force my friendship upon them. Now I have 1 day remaining and I'm still reading 3 books, but I have started all of them. He Must Like You. I really respect what Danielle Young-Allman is doing here. I think a lot of us have read or at least know about all of the, especially YA, that have come out in the last couple years that deal with sexual assault and trauma and things inspired by the Me Too movement, and overtly like describing and dealing with and seeing the repercussions. That's the wrong phrasing. Not the repercussions of sexually assaulting someone, but like this is me being not an intellectual. Seeing justice happen, I guess. And like well described and like detailed, and again like overt sexual assault, abuse, etc. This book is doing things in a much it's 2 a.m. Have I mentioned that? I don't want to say in a subtler way, but at 2 a.m. I can only think of so many words to use. Basically, it's situations that even our main character is struggling with defining. So there are 2 moments that happen in the first like couple pages of this book. One is where she's fooling around with this guy. She has said no, she does not want to have sex. And then, you know, they're both tipsy and things start to happen. She pulls away and then suddenly it's happening to her. When in his mind, they were both kind of on the same page because she, you know, wasn't continuously saying no throughout what was happening. And she mentioned the use of a condom. So to him, in their drunken state, and as someone who doesn't understand consent, saw that as consent. And then at work, which is the catalyst of the entire book, is she's at work, she is serving, and there's a guy who's like well known for being inappropriate, and he at one point grabs her butt, rests his hand on her butt, and then she dumps drinks on him and is subsequently fired. And I don't know like where either of those 2 storylines is going. I don't know how much the community is going to get involved or legal things are going to get involved, what's actually going to happen. But I just think this is equally as much of a needed conversation as more violent and again overt assault and abuse. I think this is very intentional by the author, and going through the motions, the aftermath of these moments is just going to be so interesting. I can already tell the commentary is going, like, could lead to a lot of really great discussion if a lot more people pick this up. It's a Canadian book, a Canadian publisher, which naturally like just isn't going to get the same reach as a lot of the YA books on BookTube that deal with, you know, the intense topics. So I'm really excited to finish this. 100% going to finish it tomorrow so I can have a little bit more to say and encourage you or discourage you from picking up a book, depending, you know, where it goes and what it says. China Dog. These are stories of Chinese characters coming to Canada, just first coming to Canada, just general like experiences in Canada, related to their culture and their background. I'll definitely be able to tell you like my actual favorite stories and everything tomorrow. And then Disfigured, that I have a couple other books I really wanted to get to. As far as our bingo board goes, I'm pretty sure by the end of tomorrow I will hit every single prompt except for the book, the children's book. And a comment, critique of the bingo board that I saw from a couple people when I first announced the Readathon was that they wished there was a disability prompt, and I completely agree. And I think that that's something that's lacking. And this book talks all about the fact that people with disabilities are constantly forgotten and erased, and I am so sorry. And next year I will absolutely make it a priority that that is a prompt, and I'll get together a whole bunch of recommendation lists. I don't know that many Canadian titles. That's something that I want to make a priority, especially moving forward, and when I encourage other people and when I'm responsible for creating prompts for readathons, etc. This is one of my favorite things I've ever read. Let's just get that out there right away. I'm halfway through, and this is exactly what I thought it would be and exactly what I was hoping it to be. I sometimes put barriers between me and nonfiction in general due to me, again, thinking of myself as not an intellectual and assuming that I need to read 10 books on a topic before maybe this book on a topic to fully understand the journey of this discussion. Maybe I don't feel smart enough, maybe I don't feel educated enough to read like the latest thing on a topic. And I have proven myself completely wrong, because this book, and I'm sure so many others, do such a great job of talking about the history of this topic in literature. And this keeps happening to me. This happened to me when I read Bad Feminist. Like, Roxane Gay pulled from all of these different books and how feminism has been discussed and represented in books, and then you got to read her book and her thoughts. This is doing the same thing. It's pulling from different essays and quotes, and we're learning about how disability has been covered before. When I hauled this book originally, I had some people in the comments say like, it's not really an issue that Scar from The Lion King has a scar and he happens to be a villain. Like, it's not really problematic that Ariel, you know, something about her voice and her legs and whatever, like that's not really that bad. And this book touches on those exact things, and why this in itself might not be harmful, but if this is all you're shown in media as a person with a disability, is that someone who looks like you, acts like you, walks like you, talks like you, is always the villain, it's so fucked up. And I'm only halfway through, but like the discussions that have happened in here, from like the history of how Disney has become what it is and how like fables become what they are, it's just such valuable stuff. It talks about the villainizing of disabled people. It talks about the infantilization of people. Let me find you a quote. I have a couple post-its, but I don't even know what I posted it for. So she's talking about some extreme examples of like miracles and magic and stuff like that. And then it says, of course we know, looking back on these tales from a century and a half in the future, that these things do not often happen at all. Yet the spirit and the tropes of tales like these persist. The disabled character overcomes his disability through some momentous, miraculous act, or, as in the case of the Little Mermaid, overcomes a variety of disabilities to obtain her heart's true desire through the long work of sacrifice and good deeds. Pray, drink more water, drink green tea, do a detox, push through, exercise. The only disability is a bad attitude. The end goal is the same. The happy ending somehow always involves a body that does exactly what it's supposed to do all of the time. And if you don't manage to get that body, it's somehow entirely your fault. Society has nothing to do with it. She even talks about the Disney princesses who are seemingly like unproblematic and how they're completely problematic to the disabled community. This book is so good. There's also an audiobook that I listened to for a bit while I was doing dishes today, and it's a quick audiobook to get through too. I was actually listening to it on 2.5 speed, which I never do, but it lends itself well to a higher speed. Let me plug Libro FM again, because its capability of book speeds and even like the interface is far superior to anything else I've used. So I'm feeling passionate about the books that I'm reading. I still have a lot going on. I'm still only going to be filming clips in my room. Hopefully this isn't too boring. But my readathon is successful. So at least there's that. Okay, we're on the last day of the Read-A-Thon. I'm realizing how different I look from the last clip you saw, and it's probably a little jarring. I just did the live show for Zone 1 with Rachel Ray Reads, and it was so great. And now I'm ready for the day and know where to go and nothing to do. So I'm gonna try to figure out another video I can film. The boys are out again. I think they're just at the park. They just ran out of the house so I could go live without being interrupted. So I definitely have some time to read, plan a video. I don't know what else. That's kind of all I got going on. I finished this. Disfigured on Fairy Tales, Disability, and Making Space. I wish this was 10 times longer. I wish this had even more to say. I wish I had opportunity to learn even more. I don't know what else. This was perfect. Truly perfect. Like, I really don't know any nonfiction that I will ever recommend more than this. Like, especially if you're someone who like does make an effort to follow various voices and who like reposts, you know, various Instagram like infographics about topics like these already. This is just such a good like comprehensive explanation of like all of these little conversations that are happening all around the book community. I was so glad it also touched on mental health, mental illness, how, you know, schizophrenia and various things, like how they are wrongly described, how perpetuated in media. And it even like referenced some different words that are harmful. Like I stopped saying going into books blind a couple years ago, and this touched on like the usage of the word blind, the usage of the word tone deaf, which again, like you've probably seen the conversations happening on book Twitter about tone deaf. And it's just so important to think about the words that you use and how they could be harmful to an entire group of people. And obviously that's not your intent, but if we can all be more inclusive with our language, like why wouldn't we be? So it talks about again, like topics that you've probably seen discussed on book Twitter and the like, but like not saying that people are confined to wheelchairs or that you have succumbed to a long illness. How people use the term like that someone lost a battle with something or fought against AIDS or cancer, and how our use of language reinforces the viewpoint that disabled bodies are bad. However well-intentioned that the disabled person can and should rise above their physical limitations, you're participating in a world that seeks to further entrench disabled exclusion. It talks about how we use the phrase like, don't let your disability define you, and just like how all of these things, well-meaning or well-intentioned, can actually be really harmful. And I love that she prefaces the book, like we all know I love a good preface. And this book perfectly introduces itself by talking about like, this is just one experience. This is Amanda's experience. This is her thoughts. This is her examples from other people. But again, people are not a monolith, and this is just like one perspective, and I think it's a really solid perspective. I think it's really well researched, obviously pulls from a lot of personal experience, and just wonderful. 5 stars. Okay, I'm making good progress. I'm getting tired. I need to put Liam to bed. I still need to finish that movie with Rob. It's been a long time. It's been sitting there waiting for us, and I This is actually like a super fast moving book. It's really easy to read. I'm just getting through it slowly because I'm also reading stories from this, and I've also been taking pictures of bookmarks. I've been watching a bunch of booktube videos. Once I finish these books, I will hit almost every single part of the bingo board, which is pretty cool. And I'll probably end up updating you in the morning. This will get finished by midnight. This book makes me super angry. Like, everyone in her life makes me so angry, and that's like the point. But it's about like this cycle that you get into of excusing poor behavior by men, and she's basically done it her entire life. Her father, her ex-boyfriend, the guy at work, the guy she serves at work. She's talking about her mom, and she's like, my mom's actually more upset that I didn't do a good job handling being sexually harassed than that I was sexually harassed in the first place, because so many people this happens to, and excuses are made, and the cycles continue. People thinking they can get away with whatever. People thinking that because they're in power, they can do and say whatever they want and not face any repercussion. I really think this is one of those books that's going to be really polarizing, because I think people could easily read this and get like the wrong message, or deem it, this happens so much, deem it like problematic that everyone in her life is making excuses for these men, because I'm sure that like not every one of those storylines is going to end up with the person being like, oh, you were right all along, men are trash. But this is so real and such necessary conversations. I could definitely do without the use of the word crazy and psychotic and psycho, because she's talking about how like everything is building up so much. Her life is so stressful. Her parents are kicking her out of the house so they can run an Airbnb, and she is going through it. And she's like, I am becoming a psycho and I'm having a psychotic episode or whatever. So like, I wish that language was a little different, but it's a good book. Okay, so the point of the bingo board was never to hit every single thing. But me being my neurotic self, I can't leave one. So I actually borrowed this from the library like a week ago, and I wasn't even planning on reading it for this readathon. It was just one of the lists that I shared in my blog. This book was specifically in the anti-racist Canadian children book list that I shared. So I'm gonna read it with Liam, and that's gonna mark the last box. However, I cannot find any evidence that this is a Canadian book. It's on that list. That's why I picked it up, because I was like, oh, that would be good for me and Liam to read together. But I don't actually know if it's Canadian. I don't want to call the list a sham, but like, I can't find any mention of Canada by any of the authors, illustrators. There are 4 people involved. I don't really know, but we're gonna count it. This is gonna be my 8th book, and I don't care if I shouldn't count.
Most of the time, my words are a curse. I open my mouth and people run away. Now I'm stuck with Irene.
The Read-A-Thon is over. I want to thank everybody for participating. My hosts are amazing. Regular content coming out this week, which was so cool. I never daily vlog for my own readathons. I need to fix that. Or just not run readathons. For real, thank you so much if you participated, or if you're just tuning into this to see what I recommend. Essentially, I recommend all of it. So the last couple things that I finished that I need to update you on. He Must Like You. I'm giving 4 out of 5 stars. I felt really good about this overall. Definitely recommend. I only drop a star because I do struggle to not connect. Like, I never like need to connect with a character, but specifically with her main characters, they are written in a way where their personality is only explained by their reactions, if that makes sense. So like, I don't know anything about Libby besides how she reacts to situations and other people. And I kind of felt the same in Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined, but that book is so well done. This book is so well done, but the main character always needs a little bit more for me. I think it also showed really well the different reactions of different people. So like the same situation could be happening with 3 different guys in her life. She's being taken advantage of or assaulted, or whatever the things that are happening to her are happening from so many different angles, and every man's response in the book is completely different, which I think is so real. When people are called out on their behavior, there are so many different ways that we see people react to those things, and especially in books where there is one main conflict, we only really see one main reaction from the perpetrator. But in this situation, there were so many different storylines happening that we really saw all angles of like how people can behave and how they should behave when they're told that something they're doing is not appropriate. So 4 stars overall. And then I finished China Dog, which is, I think, what was it, 8 stories by Judy Fong Bates. My favorite ones in here, let me see, the ones that like I just felt I guess most impacted by was Cold Food, and then the last story in here was the title story, China Dog, and that one was really impactful. And then the first one, what was the first story in here? My Sister's Love, and it's a really short one, and I think it was the perfect way to kick off this collection and like set a really good pace for how long the rest of the stories were going to be. These were all just really interesting dips into people's lives, people who originally came from, or their families came from China, and their experiences living mostly like in Toronto. So there were stories covering mail order brides, there were stories covering suicide, there were stories about like relationships, family, food, illnesses. Obviously this doesn't cover, just like when I talked about Disfigured, like this obviously isn't a monolithic story. Not everybody will connect with this, and you can't read one thing and think that you now understand a community. So this also, like, while it had a lot of examples, obviously all of the cultural things that were mentioned gives you more of an insight into a culture maybe you don't belong to, like me. But it's not that I now, you know, understand the Chinese experience in Canada, but I do think this is really informative in general. So yet again, the last readathon I did, there were so many 5-star reads, and this readathon I had so many 5-star reads. I'm just like in such a positive reading space. So much of it was so good. So I read 7 books this week. Wow, I did read that children's book, and it's definitely, upon reading it, not Canadian, so we're just gonna ignore that. China Dog was, did I give it a rating? Probably 4 stars, as with most short story collections. He Must Like You was 4 stars. Washington Black was 5 stars. Disfigured, 5 stars, beyond 5 stars. Disintegrate, Dissociate, 5 stars. The Skin We're In, 5 stars. The Troop was definitely my lowest rated book, which is so wild because there are so many books here that like I traditionally shouldn't even like, and I gave them 5 stars. And then a book that seems right up my alley, that's been recommended a ton, that I've wanted to read for so long, that like is the epitome of everything I should like, just didn't really do it for me. So what did I give that? Like, let's say a 3-star. But regardless of my feelings about any of these books, I actually would 100% recommend all of them. They all have an audience, and I didn't hate anything once again. Oh my gosh, could we go the entire month without hating a single book? Like, is this just my life now? Anyway, I hope maybe you got a recommendation from this video, or you learned about a book maybe you didn't know about. Let me thank the publisher for sending this my way, and thanking the library for having this in stock. And with that, I will see you soon. Bye!